in Ferguson was that a lot of community leaders and people in the public wanted to have the federal investigation. They didn't trust the local thing.
Right.
You know, they didn't trust local police doing it. So they wanted the feds to come in, and the FBI, the Department of Justice came in. And now what we're starting to hear is from that investigation that the evidence is simply not supporting a lot of the eyewitness accounts, and the evidence is supporting. And by the way, this is forensic evidence. I mean, this isn't just a verbal statement from Officer Wilson. This is forensic evidence. I've read, and I'm sure you've covered it. That they're taking these autopsy results and showing them to forensic pathologists in San Francisco and other venues. People that are completely detached from this area that have really no benefit one way or the other to skew their answers. And they're saying what the evidence is showing here is that these autopsy results, this forensic evidence is consistent with what Officer Darren Wilson is saying, and that doesn't surprise me.
There is, Bob McCullough said on this show, everything the feds have, we have, and everything we have, the feds have.
That's
so they're
correct.
all looking at whatever information is uncovered, everybody's sharing it with everybody. Right. The New York Times story said that 2 shots in the car.
Correct.
And that Michael Brown's hand was injured in one of those shots. Piecing that story with the story that came out, I guess, late last night with Christine Byers' story, is that the struggle in the car is much more detailed, the struggle in the car. As you put those 2 stories together, what are your thoughts as we hear more of that story? Not necessarily etched in stone, but sources, I would say a very credible source, vetted by 2 credible newspapers.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, again, we've got potentially credible sources, and I've read the articles, and so I base my opinion on what I'm reading in the articles, not personal information that I have direct knowledge about the case.
Right.
I know some people involved in that investigation, and we have a strict no-talk policy, and we really don't. We've had lunch together. We don't talk about it. It's just that simple. It keeps everything nice and clean for us. But what I can tell you is, again, I think this evidence is trending to supporting the officer's side of these events. There's a lot of confusion about eyewitness statements. There was a lot of misinformation that was purposely provided as part of this investigation by people that just kind of created a story and threw it out there.
Right.
And again, eyewitness testimony is certainly never the best testimony, because you can take 10 people, watch the same thing, and get 10 different descriptions of it. It's dangerous to base indictments on eyewitness testimony. It's not safe.
Watching all of this and knowing enough to know enough to be dangerous, there is no question in my mind that this New York Times story from the feds and this story locally here is purposely leaked, and I don't know who did it, clearly. I don't know what, but there's no question that this is to soften up the ground for if, in fact, it turns out that there is no local indictment of Officer Wilson and there is no federal charges. This is to sort of loosen up the audience, if you will, loosen up the community to say, hey, you know what? There's a real possibility that he might not be indicted.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I certainly don't know anything about how this information is getting out, but what I can tell you is that it could have an impact because, again, as I've said every single time I'm on this show, there are a lot of very good people out there that have some hurt feelings and that are very upset about this shooting and the investigation and the way the protests were handled in Ferguson. But I can tell you that our police department and other agencies are really looking at ways to solve those issues. We're looking to do things to improve our services to the community. But with regards to this shooting, I do think that there are a lot of reasonable people out there, protesters, people that may not side with the police, that are going to start looking at this going, there now seems to be an increasing amount of evidence from multiple sources. The federal government, for instance, who were asked to come in.
Right.
this information now is gaining credibility. The autopsy results are being reviewed by other people. The information, the statements are all starting to kind of come out, and they're painting a clearer picture of probably what, or more accurately, what transpired in Ferguson that day.
And the what happened in that car. Officer Wilson says that he was almost lost consciousness.
Right.
There were 2 shots in the car. Michael Brown's hand was injured in the car. Whether he was shot, sounds like he was shot, and also there was some type of scrape of some skin that was left in the car as well.
I can kind of comment about that and say, listen, if you've ever had your bell rung, you know, whether it's through sports and you caught an elbow to the face, you know what kind of bright lights you see when you get hit in the face. I like to think I'm one of the toughest guys in the world.
Right.
I'm really not. It's kind of a misnomer. But really, you ring my bell, I'm down for the count.
Right.
I mean, it's just that simple. But especially, things like the knockout game. You see people die from getting punched like that.
Yeah.
So, when you have somebody on top of you and you're getting hit in the face, and you're fighting for your life, and you have an adrenaline dump, and you have tunnel vision, and you have auditory exclusion where you're not able to hear certain things. This is your body in a defensive mode. And when you're getting hit in the face, well, I'll tell you what, you get, like I said, you get your bell rung, you could potentially lose consciousness. It depends on how hard you're being hit or where you're being hit.
Somebody said something to me the other day I thought it was quite interesting. They said the people who hate bad cops the most are good cops.
You know what? It sounds a little cheesy to me, and I mean that respectfully, but I think that's absolutely true because of this. I've said it before. We do have issues in law enforcement nationwide, but I still believe that it is a very small percentage of officers that may engage in a certain type of misconduct. People make mistakes. We have officers that make mistakes, and they're disciplined, and there's a disciplinary process, and we hope that they learn from those mistakes. We can provide additional training. Certainly there are those incidents that may go over the line, but what we want to do is, what I want to focus on is all the good work. But at the same time, I can't be naive about the fact that some officers may not at times use the best decision-making process. I do believe that more good policemen get aggravated when things like that happen. But I want to underscore that we're not talking about Darren Wilson here.
Right.
I don't believe Darren Wilson did anything wrong. I don't believe the officers involved in
Now, why do
shootings.
you say that? You say that because you know more information, or you know Officer Wilson, or why do you say that?
I don't know Darren, but what I can tell you is I'm gathering the same information that you are.
Right.
I'm seeing this growing pile of evidence here that really starts to, in my opinion, through independent sources and other outlets, really starts to paint a clearer picture of what occurred.
What are the police officers talking about what are you doing? What's going on when this information is going to be released? Are you talking to the feds? Are you talking, what are the police doing anything special to plan for when the announcements are made? You know what?
I have a meeting scheduled with our chief this week, and I think he's going to be able to give me a little bit of an update. I know that they are working on obviously some contingency plans. I know they've reached out to community leaders. I've had 1 or 2 community leaders that these are black community leaders who have actually reached out to me directly that I've met over the last few years, and they're saying, you know what, Gabe, we really want you at the table. We really want to have discussions with you and your organization, but right now's not the time, because some of them are afraid of
what might happen,
criticisms, or that they're going to be that individuals will turn on them because they're actually reaching out to law enforcement.
Gabe Crocker, our guest, a couple more minutes, and then I want to get you a couple more questions about the Shaw shooting. I was on CNN, and I was called out for things that I said that were not true. Let me make sure I said things that were accurate. Have police officers been spit on?
Yes.
Have protesters thrown urine at police officers?
Yes.
Have protesters thrown feces at police officers?
I have not heard that one.
Okay. I said thousands of bullets have been shot at police.
At police or near police, I think is the most. Yeah, absolutely. Because I was out there on nights where the bullets were flying possibly 2 or 3 houses away, and I mean
I said thousands. Is it safe to say?
You know what? Yeah, in the last 70 days, have thousands of rounds of ammunition been fired at or near police officers? I think you're very close and very accurate.
Okay. Also, lastly, police officers. I had another good question, and then I totally forgot. All right,
That's okay.
It was that. It was that. It was this. It was that. It was that. It was this. Something else. Did the Qdoba on Grand, was that just boarded up, or was that wasn't? That was boarded up, right?
You know what? I don't know.
You're a county guy. You're not a city guy.
Well, no, but I'm familiar with that incident and with the, some of the stuff that went on there because I talked to to Jeff Rorta, who's the business manager for the city association, and I've spoken to him about that incident. I don't know if that restaurant was damaged or if they
just did it
pre-boarded,
themselves,
if you will, to prevent their property from being damaged.
Gabe Crocker, our guest. More in a moment. Big 550 KTRS. John Beal Roofing, ladies and 48 Big 550 KTRS. Gabe Crocker, our guest, talking to him. He is the St. Louis County Police Association president, the spokesman, the president of the St. Louis County Police Union in the county.
It's a lot of pressure.
Well, let's talk about the Shaw shooting because
Sure.
the Shaw shooting, even though it's in the city, what are your thoughts? Because a lot of people want to know, going forward, they released a lot of information.
Yes.
Lots of information.
Yes.
And yet they're very tight-lipped with the Officer Wilson shooting in Ferguson. So what's going on?
Well, again, you're seeing an adjustment in law enforcement strategy. I've been critical of Chief Dotson in the past, but I can support the fact that he has looked at some of his methods and been very supportive of his officers that have been involved in some of these critical incidents, primarily shootings.
Right.
It's just two different times, two different strategies, because one of the things I like to underscore is that law enforcement right now is changing in St. Louis. And I think it would probably change quicker if we weren't burdened with the ongoing civil disturbances that are occurring. But I understand that that's part of our job. But, this Shaw shooting, again, we talked about Jamila Nasheed earlier. I mean, this is what people like her wanted. They wanted more transparency. They wanted more information sooner, and I think that we're trying to adjust, and police chiefs and law enforcement officials and prosecutors are trying to accommodate that kind of release. So what you saw is the information come out. You had soon-to-be State Senator Jeff Rorta, president of the City Police Association, Joe Steiger, and a defense attorney, Brian Milliken, that were there releasing this information about the Shaw shooting. And then they were criticized for releasing the information.
Right.
So, you're really darned if you do, darned if you don't.
But they also said they said, we're tired of standing by and letting the other side tell the story.
Right.
We're going to get our facts out.
I think in general, not only the police chiefs, but certainly as police association representatives are very tired of the narrative being drawn and misinformation by leaders in this area they're inciting people and intentionally providing false information. And they're very careless. In this Shaw shooting, that the subject had a sandwich and that he was, murdered and shot in the back of the head. And then they go, oh, retraction a little later on. Sorry, that's just information we heard and we put it out there. No, that's careless. That's careless. And if you're a state senator, state representative, or a U.S. senator or a congressperson, that is dangerous, and it's irresponsible of you to put that information out there. Be a leader. Step up and lead. And that's what we need around these things. I've talked to the officer involved in that Shaw shooting. That was a life or death struggle. That guy is a decorated police officer. He's a decorated combat veteran, and he was in a fight for his life. He was being shot at, and he had to return fire so that he could go back and see his family. It's disgusting that these people, community leaders, people that we're supposed to entrust with operating our government, put this information out there, incite protests, damage businesses, disrupt neighborhoods, because a decorated veteran, a decorated police officer for the city of St. Louis has to defend his life against a criminal. somebody wearing an ankle bracelet because they're already in trouble for a gun crime, and then they're shooting, this gentleman is shooting at the police. We should never have an expectation in this country, in this city, in St. Louis, that you can shoot at the police and we won't shoot back. That is a textbook use of force, and I'm glad that that officer, my friend, is still alive.
If the gun doesn't jam, there's a real possibility your friend is dead.
Absolutely. And that really, and not only should it shakes me, but it should shake our communities. You don't have to agree with everything the police department does and everything, hey, maybe we've all gotten a ticket we didn't like, I understand that. But let's put the small stuff aside and remember that police are the front line of defense. Look how many homicides we've had in the city of St. Louis. 3 people dead yesterday, 4 more injured in gun-related violence. It is the police officers in the city of St. Louis and in St. Louis County who are the first people to respond to that, who are under fire, who are under attack. And yes, I know we have other incidents going on and that we are reviewing how we, conduct ourselves. And we're talking about body cameras and releasing information. But in the dead of the night, when there are people out there with guns and assault rifles, it is still these fine officers, men and women, black or white, gay or lesbian, doesn't matter. These officers are out there protecting the citizens of St. Louis City and St. Louis County, and it just absolutely disgusts me when people who are entrusted with to run our government, to provide information to constituents, do so in an irresponsible manner, and they affect the public trust in law enforcement, especially in situations that should not be questioned, like when you shoot at the police, when you shoot at my friend.
So I got about 2 minutes left,
Sure.
Gabe. There has been a number of calls. I've heard from a couple of secondary sources saying that police officers are turning in their badge saying it's just not worth it. I don't want to be a police officer anymore. We've lost the community. It's not worth it. What are you seeing? Are you seeing police officers saying that? Are you seeing people who don't want to be police officers because it's just not worth it?
I'm seeing officers who are stressed, and I've seen officers who are being pushed and challenged in ways that they haven't been challenged in a very long time. I want those officers to hang in there. What doesn't hurt you or kill you does make you stronger. I know that our chief and our command staff, the same for our brothers and sisters in the City Police Association, are wanting these officers to hang on, ride the storm, stick with us. We have attorneys to represent them in cases of accusations. We will file lawsuits against people. We are there to defend you, to defend officers. You have someone on your side. That's what we want them to know. And if they have an issue, if they're thinking about quitting, if they're reaching the brink, we have resources and we have people that they can talk to. We have other officers that they can talk to, that they can share information, because we don't want to lose quality people. And believe you said you think we're losing the public trust. I think it's the exact opposite.
I'm sorry.
I think we're gaining public trust. I think that the numbers and some things that I've heard are showing people in general support the police. And I think they're getting very tired of these aggressive protesters and people that are continually disrupting. And by the way, I'm not talking about peaceful disruptions. Okay, I'm talking about violent disruptions.
Well, anybody look at that video that was posted.
Sure, and Sean, you see them kicking the police vehicles and they're up in people's faces. That's not peaceful.
Right.
That is not a peaceful protest, and we should have expectations that we do not allow that in this country.
Gabe Crocker is the St. Louis County Police Association president for St. Louis County. Thank you for coming in. You're always welcome here.
Thank you very much, McGraw.
All right.